So the Whiskey Rebellion, to my disappointment, was not just about a ton of angry drunk people. You kind of got to start with the American Revolution, where the United States incurred a massive amount of debt from the cost of war. And Alexander Hamilton, who's a pivotal character in the whole causation of this rebellion, he proposed the Compromise of 1790, which had the federal government take control and responsibility of all outstanding debt from the war from the states, which in turn crippled the American government financially. A year later, the American government was completely broke. And Alexander Hamilton, who was the Treasury Secretary at the time, told President George Washington that in order to climb out of this insurmountable amount of debt, that they needed to impose a tax on the sale and production of whiskey, which was the Whiskey Tax of 1791. This really pissed off some farmers and distillers in western Pennsylvania, and their non-compliance was evident immediately. Besides blatant and outright refusal to pay the federal tax, a lot of protesters resorted to violence, and the federal tax collectors were oftentimes attacked on their collection routes. There were many instances where they were tarred and feathered, or their families were attacked, and this went on for a couple of years. It didn't come to a standstill. The tension and discontent of people in western Pennsylvania was just escalating until it reached its peak in 1794. So there was this guy named John Neville, and he was really nothing more than a really rich dude who owned a ton of land in Pennsylvania. But he went on to make a really dumb decision, and he actually agreed to not only house, but act as a tour guide for a newly appointed tax collector and federal marshal named David Lennox. Well, in July, a mob of roughly 700 people marched on his estate at Bower Hill, and they burnt his house and all surrounding buildings to the ground. Now, this sort of incident, it just picked up momentum for the rebellion, and 7,000 angry drunk people all decided to go to Pittsburgh to officially put a stop to this tax collection. This attack on Pittsburgh and the disobedience to the whiskey tax as a whole was really a direct threat and challenge to the true authority of the government. So George Washington, in response, met with his cabinet officials where he assumed emergency power, and this enabled him to put together an armed militia of roughly 12,000 soldiers to finally stop this resistance. Now, in light of the news, the rebels in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh specifically were terrified, and they all fled from the city and went into hiding. Now, this display of power was really enough to completely shut down the Whiskey Rebellion and all civil disobedience that was connected to it. The Whiskey Rebellion was a pivotal moment in American history. It greatly affected the interactions and dynamics between the government and its citizens for generations. It really challenged the newly established federal government, who quickly learned that you should never mess with people and their alcohol. Thank you guys for watching.